Welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we take your sources and slice through the noise to bring you the most essential and surprising insights.
Today, we are strapping in for a pretty extraordinary journey. We're going far beyond the realms of modern business or science.
Yeah, we are plunging deep into the heart of Norse mythology, specifically into the gleaming, but as we'll see, shockingly fragile halls of Asgard.
It's a deep dive into existential peril, really. I mean, when we think of gods, you assume infinite, inherent power and eternity, right?
Of course.
But the Norse gods, the Aesir, they're unique. Their immortality, their strengths, their very status as divine beings, it isn't a birthright. It's more like a maintenance plan.
And a very, very specific maintenance plan at that. It hinges entirely on what's essentially a fruit bowl.
It really does.
We are talking about the golden apples carried by the goddess Idunn. Our sources detail this truly chaotic and consequential adventure. It involves three of the most powerful gods, Thor, Loki, and the often overlooked Honir. And it threatens to, well, pull the plug on Asgard's eternal youth.
So our mission today is to unpack the entire sequence. We're talking about the disastrous road trip that kicked it all off, the ingenious, really layered deception Loki used to betray his own kin.
And then the terrifying speed with which the gods succumb to age when their life source just vanished.
And finally, we're going to spend some time analyzing the price of reconciliation, which is a truly bizarre and high-stakes negotiation. It involves marriage, cosmic violence, and I think the most humiliating, grotesque display of physical comedy Loki has ever performed.
That part is just unbelievable.
It really is. The core question hanging over this entire narrative is what happens when functional divinity is revealed to be, contingent, perishable?
Yeah.
What kind of desperate measures and what kind of absurd sacrifices are required to fix a mess created by the trickster god?
This isn't just a myth. It's a brilliant examination of power and, I think, vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's unpack this. We begin not in the splendor of Asgard, but, well, somewhere else entirely. In the desolate, starving fringes of the world. Let's start with that initial expedition that inadvertently set the stage for this epic betrayal.
Exactly. Our sources place the gods Thor, Loki, and Honir on the absolute fringes of civilization. They're exploring the harsh mountain wastes right on the border of Jotunheim.
The land of the giants.
Land of the giants. They are far from home, and they are critically, desperately hungry.
I think that hunger detail is so important because it just immediately humanizes them. They're gods, sure, but they're subject to this really basic biological need that just overrides their divine sense. They're exploring, maybe looking for trouble, or maybe just surveying their kingdom's borders.
And they're absolutely starving.
Their fortune seems to change, though, when they stumble upon a literal oasis, a green valley protected by these huge oak and pine trees. And there are fat, healthy cattle grazing.
A huge relief. You can just imagine it. They immediately decide to secure a meal. They slaughter an ox, they dig a pit, build a fire, and begin cooking the meat, just anticipating this much-needed feast.
But here's where the mundane stops and the unsettling magic begins. They open the pit, and the source tells us the meat is still raw, still bloody. It hasn't even started to cook.
Not even a little. So Thor, who's always confident in his strength and his ability to command natural forces, he tries again. He builds an even bigger fire, stacks the wood higher, and uses all his divine might to heat the stones.
So wait, probably even longer this time, and their hunger is just getting worse and worse.
But when they open the pit again, the meat is utterly unchanged, cold, raw, bloody. This is the first signal that their strength and their usual magic are being actively nullified.
Drained by something.
Yes, by a superior unknown force. They've entered territory where their established rules of physics and divinity they don't apply anymore.
And it turns out they are not alone. It's not just some strange magical phenomenon. They're being intentionally mocked. Loki, who's maybe a bit more sensitive to these hidden auditory cues, he hears a sound.
Laughter.
Laughter, but not human laughter. It's described as vast and amused. They look everywhere, high and low, but they can't find anything.
Until Loki looks up toward the tallest pine tree. And perched there is this massive bird, a giant of an eagle, the likes of which they have never seen before.
And this creature is just radiating power and amusement. It's the source of the draining magic. Thor, predictably, he just yells up at it and demands an explanation.
And the eagle, who is of course the giant Thiazi in disguise, confirms it. He reveals he knows exactly why the fire won't cook, having placed a deep binding magic upon the meal, holding the heat captive.
The desperation of the gods is now just palpable. They are powerful, but they are powerless against this specific, calculated spell.
Thiazi, being a giant, immediately proposes a bargain, a deal. If the gods promise to give him a generous portion of the meat, he will release the magic and allow the fire to function.
And Loki, driven by his own intense hunger and his quick-witted desire to just move the situation forward, he immediately promises the eagle his share. He makes a binding oath to the disguised giant.
The moment Loki promises, Thiazi fulfills his side. The eagle circles the meadow, and the sheer force of the wind from its powerful wings is enough to reignite the coals instantly, turning them into this furious, roaring flame.
The gods are literally forced to hold on to each other to avoid being blown away by the sudden, concentrated force of this bird's flight.
So when the meat is finally ready, the smell is heaven. But the gods quickly learn that a giant's definition of a portion is drastically different from their own.
It's highway robbery.
Total highway robbery. The ravenous eagle swoops down and in a flash of speed seizes the two rear haunches of the ox, the best, fattest parts, and an entire shoulder.
So he takes, what, 2/3 of the meal?
Easily. And Loki, having endured the hunger, the waiting, and the humiliating dependence on this creature, just loses his temper entirely.
This is Loki's moment of crucial folly. Loki, the master of calculation, acts on pure impulse. He strikes the eagle with his spear, intending to wound it or force it to drop the stolen food.
He thinks he could overpower this creature physically.
A huge miscalculation.
And that is the trap sprung perfectly. The eagle flaps its wings, not in aggression, but in a magical counterstrike. The spear gets stuck fast in the bird's side, and instantly, Loki realizes his hands are magically stuck to the shaft of the spear.
So he can't let go.
Can't let go. The eagle takes off, not dropping Loki, but carrying him with it, pinned to its side.
The flight that follows is pure nightmare fuel. The sources describe Loki being dragged low over stones, gravel, thorny mountainsides, and right through the crowns of pine trees. His boots are torn to shreds, his clothes are ruined.
And his arms are being pulled taut, threatening to tear from their sockets under the strain. Loki, the trickster, is completely and utterly helpless. He realizes he's pinned by a magic mightier than anything Loki could control.
He's been outmaneuvered not just mentally, but he's being physically brutalized by his captor.
He's forced into desperation. The eagle circles higher and higher, offering no respite, simply grinding Loki down until he's broken. And when Loki finally begs for release, promising anything, the eagle names his price.
The only price that matters to the Aesir.
Exactly. The price is twofold. I want Idunn, and I want her apples, the apples of immortality.
And this is the moment the stakes shift from, a fight over a steak dinner to a full-blown confrontation over the very existence of Asgard.
We have to pause here to emphasize, for you, the listener, just how crucial these apples are. Idunn is the keeper of the golden apples, and the source specifies that she carries them in an ashwood box. They are the circulatory system of Asgard's eternal youth.
Right. Think of it this way. Their immortality isn't like the Greek gods who were just born eternal and indestructible.
No, it's different.
The Aesir are more like magnificent machines that require constant high-grade fuel. A god or goddess only needs to eat a single apple when they feel the onset of age. The chilling sign of frosting hair or the painful ache of joints.
And that single bite immediately reverses the clock. It restores their full youth and power.
So this reliance makes them fundamentally different. It introduces a point of catastrophic failure.
It does. The source explicitly states, without Idunn's apples, the gods would scarcely be gods. Their divinity is conditional. It's dependent on a perishable, consumable commodity that is now the target of a giant's revenge.
So Loki, dangling there, broken, he understands the immense civilization-ending weight of the promise he has just made to Thiazi.
And Loki knows he can't fulfill that terrible promise through force. He tried physical violence on the giant's bird form, and he was nearly killed. His only recourse is his true genius, calculated, flawless psychological manipulation.
Which brings us perfectly to the second phase of this deep dive, the art of the perfect deception. Loki has to lure Idunn, the keeper of Asgard's most valuable treasure, out of the safe, guarded walls of the city.
He has to use mind games because brute force already failed him.
What's immediately fascinating is this shift in Loki's interpersonal behavior. The sources note that Loki usually just ignored Idunn entirely. He treated her as a pleasant but, insignificant domestic figure.
But the very next morning, he is all attention, all smiles, and overly pleasant inquiries about her well-being. This sudden, uncharacteristic pleasantness is the first layer of the trap.
He immediately launches into the aging ruse, but he plays it so dramatically. He doesn't just say he's aging, he performs it.
Oh, my aching back. Old age is a terrible thing, Idunn. I feel the years piling up on me.
And Idunn, who sees the gods constantly eating her apples and remaining youthful, she's skeptical. But Loki is persuasive.
To quell his apparent suffering, she does what she always does. She opens her sacred ashwood box and gives him a golden apple.
Loki devours it entirely, making sure he's restored and fortified for the task ahead. But then comes the moment of true, chilling genius, the critical complaint.
After achieving temporary youth and energy, he makes a face, a gesture of deep dissatisfaction. He wipes his mouth and says casually, "Oh dear, I thought you'd have, nicer apples than this."
It's not an attack on her, it's an attack on her prize and the unique value of her commodity.
He knows Idunn is not protected by giant defenses or armies, but by the universal divine belief that her apples are the only source of immortality.
So Loki is exploiting a profound sense of pride and professional ownership. He introduces the idea of rivalry. He claims with absolute conviction that he saw other apples in the forest that were finer in every way, suggesting they contained a better kind of immortality.
Wait, hold on a second. Loki is risking torture and death, and the very downfall of Asgard. But his entire plan hinges on Idunn being insecure about the quality of her product.
Yes.
That seems like an incredibly high-stakes gamble based on a very human flaw.
Pride and, I guess, market competition.
It is, but Loki knows that pride is often the fastest route to irrational behavior. Idunn's apples are the bedrock of Asgardian longevity. They cannot be inadequate. They certainly can't have a superior competitor, especially one found just growing in a forest.
So she's not just a keeper. She's an artisan of eternal youth, and her masterpiece has just been criticized.
Exactly. And her reaction is precisely what Loki calculated. She walks beside him, her face cycling through disbelief, puzzlement, and most importantly, concern. She insists, these are the only apples like this that there are. They are perfect.
She needs external validation, and Loki offers the path to get that validation. He uses reverse psychology beautifully to shepherd her into the forest under the pretense of comparison. He needs her to see the phantom apples to prove they don't exist. But then, he locks the trap with the comparison trick, this logistical dilemma.
Right, Loki suggests. How will we truly be able to compare the quality of these supposed forest apples to the ones you have safely locked away in the ash box back in Asgard?
I could claim they are better and you would claim nonsense, and how could we ever truly tell?
He makes the comparison impossible unless she brings the proof. He doesn't command her to bring the apples. He logically forces her into making that decision herself to defend her reputation.
He frames it as an intellectual challenge that only she, the expert, can resolve.
And it works perfectly. Idunn, desperate to defend the uniqueness and superiority of her apples, says, "Don't be silly. I will bring my apples. We will compare them side by side."
So she takes her irreplaceable ashwood box containing the future of the entire Aesir pantheon and walks with Loki out of the safety of Asgard and right into the trap.
And even as they walk up the hill, Idunn is voicing her doubt, asking Loki if he's sure this rival orchard even exists.
Loki just gently assures her, maintaining the ruse until they reach the prearranged spot.
They reach the summit, and she confirms her skepticism. There is no apple tree here, only that tall pine with the eagle in it.
And that is the reveal. The eagle drops from the pine tree. Not slowly, but in a rush of power. He sheds the mild amusement of the previous day. "No eagle am I, but the giant Thiazi in eagle shape," he bellows, seizing Idunn in one taloned claw and the ashwood box in the other.
The cosmic threat is immediately declared. Time and immortality have run out for the gods of Asgard.
Idunn and the apples are gone, carried swiftly away to Jotunheim. Loki, having fulfilled his dreadful promise and saved his own skin from the immediate wrath of Thiazi, just watches them go.
The source notes this terrifyingly casual observation from Loki, muttered only to himself. So that's who that was. I knew it wasn't just an eagle.
Then he simply walks back to Asgard, hoping, against all logic, that no one will notice the massive, life-altering, pantheon-threatening crime he just committed.
Which is, of course, completely impossible. The consequences of this theft are instantaneous and horrifying. This brings us to Section 3. The terrible cost of immortality lost.
The crime is unmissable because the moment the maintenance stops, the ancient true age of the Aesir catches up to them with devastating speed.
Yeah, we're not talking about a slow decline here. We're talking about days, maybe even hours, where the most powerful beings in creation suddenly transform into withered elders.
This is perhaps the most visceral part of the myth, because the source doesn't rely on generic description. It paints a detailed, terrifying picture of physical decay that heightens the stakes immeasurably. Their divinity is stripped away, revealing only frail, exhausted biology.
Let's start with Thor, the epitome of raw, youthful strength. His famous red beard, the visual symbol of his fiery power, is now snow white with a few pale orange hairs in it, like a once proud fire become white ashes.
That imagery is so potent. The fire is out, leaving only cold, pale remnants. His strength, though not entirely gone, is certainly diminished, slowed by aching joints and stiffness.
And if Thor is suffering, just imagine the gods whose powers are intrinsically linked to beauty and appearance.
Like Freya.
Freya, the goddess of love and beauty, ages almost before their eyes. Her magnificent hair, usually shining, is now long and gray, and her face is etched with deep and careworn lines.
But what stands out to me is the detail about her famous necklace, the Breezings. Just to give the listener context, that necklace is often associated with the core of her magic and sensuality.
And now, in this aged state, the necklace hangs around her neck, dull and tarnished. The loss of her youth has literally stripped the luster from her divine artifacts. The magic is receding.
And then there's the Allfather himself, Odin. The leader of the gods, the god of wisdom and war, becomes perhaps the most tragic vision of all.
He holds his Gungnir spear and his staff with knobby, arthritic fingers, blue-veined and twisted. This is the embodiment of wisdom now paralyzed by biological failure.
His powerful, booming voice, the voice that speaks prophecy and commands armies, is cracked and dusty. And the most heartbreaking detail, his famous sacrifice, his one good eye, which he gave up for wisdom, is now glaucous gray.
That detail signals the onset of cataracts, a physical, human vision impairment. His remaining sight is failing him.
The speed of this decay makes the crime impossible to ignore, and Loki's denial just falls flat immediately. The old gods confront him.
Thor, clutching his white beard, points out the obvious flaw in Loki's innocence plea. You haven't become old like the rest of us.
Right. Loki, having just consumed one of the golden apples for energy, is the only youthful one in the room. He's caught red-handed.
He tries to deflect, claiming he simply wears age well, but the atmosphere is beyond trickery. Freya, aged and furious, demands that Thor strike him. The gods are serious, and Loki is facing true physical reprisal.
But Odin steps in, despite his infirmity, with a truly chilling, calculated threat. He stops Thor not to protect Loki, but to ensure the punishment is maximized. He promises Loki will be whole and unbroken when he is tortured.
And the preparation for this torture is laid out in brutal detail. They are heating the fires now and sharpening the blades and collecting the rocks.
The gods, ancient and weary, are united in their desire for vengeance. Odin assures Loki that their age has not diminished their capacity for brutality and suffering. The source notes that Loki can actually smell the burning coals, making the threat terrifyingly real.
This is the moment the trickster realizes his temporary reprieve is over. He has to leverage his knowledge and his unique skill set, his ability to fly with Freya's cloak to escape the immediate threat and redeem himself.
This leads to Loki's high-stakes bargain. He agrees to retrieve Idunn and the apples, but he imposes two crucial conditions for his departure. His chains must be unfastened, and he needs Freya's falcon feather cloak to fly.
The scene must have been incredibly tense. Freya, stiffly and resentfully, retrieves the priceless cloak.
As they unfasten Loki's bonds, Thor, stroking his newly white beard, issues a grave personal warning. He declares that even in this aged state, if Loki fails, Thor will hunt him down with Mjolnir.
He needs to assert his strength, stating, "I am still Thor, and I am still strong," despite all the visual evidence to the contrary.
But here's where Loki's genius truly manifests itself. Even in this moment of vulnerability and desperate escape, he's not thinking about the immediate flight. He's thinking about the return trip.
He accepts Thor's threat and immediately issues a countercommand, a demand that seems utterly trivial and counterintuitive given the urgency.
He commands Thor to cut down many trees and create an enormous pile of wood shavings outside Asgard's walls. This pile must be meticulously prepared, long and high, running along the fortification.
He's thinking 3 steps ahead. He is demanding their immediate, collective physical effort to build the precise ambush tool he will need later.
He's leveraging their desperation to ensure his plan is executed perfectly. They're too frail and terrified of dying of old age to refuse his strange instructions.
So even as Loki wraps the cloak around himself, transforms into a falcon, and flies north toward Jotunheim, the geriatric gods are dutifully carrying axes and sawing down trees to create the largest pile of kindling Asgard has ever seen.
That transformation sets up the thrilling chase sequence of Section 4, the high-speed rescue and the fiery eruption. Loki, now a tiny but incredibly swift falcon, flies north without pause until he reaches the bleak fortress of Thiazi, deep in the lands of the frost giants.
Loki's first act is surveillance, and he gets lucky. He observed the massive figure of Thiazi lumbering out and rowing a boat described as bigger than the largest whale out to sea for a fishing trip.
The coast is clear. The stage is set for the rescue.
He quickly finds Idunn, who is being kept in the farthest room, weeping through a barred window. She immediately confronts him, calling him the source of all her woes.
And Loki's response is classic trickster pragmatism. He just dismisses her valid accusations. That was yesterday's Loki. Today's Loki is here to save you.
He has no time for apologies.
None at all. Idunn, being a conscientious goddess, confirms she has the ash box of apples with her, emphasizing her unwavering dedication to her duty. I am a goddess of the Aesir. Where I am, the apples also are.
This makes the rescue logistically simple, but it requires a massive act of transformation magic.
Right. Loki, knowing he cannot carry a full-size goddess, commands her to close her eyes. Using the power of Freya's cloak, he transforms Idunn into the smallest, most defensible object he can manage, a hazelnut in its shell, with the green husk still clinging to it.
He grasps this tiny, crucial package, the entire future of the Aesir, in his talons, and immediately begins the desperate, high-speed flight back home.
He knows the clock is ticking, not just because of the aging gods, but because Thiazi will return.
And Thiazi returns sooner than expected, frustrated by a poor fishing day. His intention, upon returning to his keep, was specifically to torment Idunn, maybe by describing in cruel detail how drooling, palsied, quivering hulks the gods must be by now.
He goes to her room, finds it empty, and immediately sees the damning evidence, a single falcon's feather on the floor.
The jig is up.
The giant instantly realizes the betrayal and the escape. His fury is absolute. He transforms into an eagle, even huger and mightier than any he had been before, an immense engine of vengeance.
The pursuit is a cosmic race against time. The sources describe Thiazi flying toward Asgard so fast that the air itself boomed with the sound of his passing. He is a terrifying force of nature.
Back in Asgard, the elderly, aching gods hear the screech and the sonic boom of the giant eagle approaching. They rush to the high walls, slowly, painfully, to witness the desperate conclusion.
And they see the contrast. The tiny falcon, Loki, narrowly ahead, holding the hazelnut of immortality, with the massive enraged eagle gaining fast, an absolute monster of feather and bone.
The critical moment arrives as Loki approaches the walls and that massive pile of wood shavings that Thor was commanded to build.
The aged gods standing high upon the walls are ready. Thor, gripping Mjolnir, asks the ancient-looking Freya, now.
She confirms, now. As the falcon flies safely over the shadings and settles inside the castle, Thor ignites the entire pile.
The resulting fire is immediate and immense because of the preparation. The high, long pile of dry, finely shaved wood, it doesn't just smolder.
No, it's a sudden cataclysmic eruption, a gout of fire higher than the walls of Asgard itself, terrifying and unimaginably hot.
This is the genius of Loki's trap. Thiazi, flying at that immense speed, is too focused on the pursuit. He cannot stop himself, he can't slow down, and he can't change direction fast enough to avoid this sudden, blazing wall of flame.
The giant flies directly into the inferno. His feathers catch fire instantly, his wingtips burn, and his momentum carries him past the wall, where he falls from the sky as a featherless eagle.
He crashes to the ground with a shuddering bang that shakes the entire fortress of Asgard.
Burned, dazed, and stunned, the giant is helpless on the ground. He hasn't had a chance to transform back into his giant shape.
And before he can muster any magic or shift his form, Thor, even in his aged state, deals the final, fatal blow with Mjolnir.
The rescue is complete, the crisis is averted, and Idunn and the apples are safe. The very first action the gods take after restoring Idunn is to immediately consume the golden apples and reverse the clock.
The vision of withered decay is replaced instantly by youthful vigor and booming health. Loki, having redeemed himself, likely thought the matter was settled.
But in Norse mythology, every act of violence requires compensation.
Absolutely. Thiazi might be dead, but he has a daughter, Skadi, And her demand for justice takes us into Section 5, the compensation and the cosmic memorial.
Skadi is a formidable figure, a giantess of the mountains. The source tells us she appears in Asgard armed and armored, demanding not just vengeance, but a resolution for the death of her father, who she declares was everything to her.
Her life is now filled with tears and misery.
The Aesir recognize the custom and the necessity of reconciliation. They can't risk a perpetual blood feud with the remaining giants, especially over a justifiable kill. They agree to compensate Skadi for the loss of a valuable life.
The negotiation yields 3 specific, layered, and often ironic forms of recompense.
And these demands perfectly encapsulate the strange mix of transactional justice and dark comedy that defines the Norse world. The 3 agreements are, first, a husband to replace her dead father.
Second, the gods must perform a task to make her laugh, as she had not smiled since her father's death.
And third, they must ensure her father is never forgotten.
Let's start with the husband. Skadi was clearly aiming high. She was eyeing the most handsome god in Asgard.
Absolutely. She kept winking and staring at Baldur, the most beautiful of the Aesir. But the gods, ever aware of keeping peace among their own, impose a condition on the selection. A seemingly impartial test designed to add a layer of sport and perhaps a degree of fate to the choice.
The condition: Skadi must choose her husband by his feet alone.
By his feet. All the male gods stand behind a curtain, only their lower legs and feet visible. This is where irony immediately steps in. Skadi examines the array of feet, often calling them ugly or ill-suited.
But she stops at one pair, exclaiming they are the most beautiful feet, perfectly formed, clean, and elegant. She is absolutely confident.
Her reasoning is that nothing on Baldur could be ugly.
And the twist is immediate and hilarious. When the curtain lifts, she discovers she has chosen not Baldur, but Njord, the god of chariots in the sea, and the father of Frey and Freya.
He has magnificent feet because he's constantly walking barefoot along the shores, keeping them perfectly smooth by the tides. It makes a certain kind of sense.
She marries him instantly, honoring the bargain, but the sources paint a stark picture. At the wedding feast, her face was the saddest any of the Aesir had ever seen.
She gained a husband, fulfilling the requirement of the compensation, but was profoundly disappointed. It's a perfect example of mythological justice. You get what you need for the structure of society, but maybe not the object of your desire.
With the marriage resolved, the next challenge is perhaps the most difficult: making the grieving giantess laugh.
This is where Thor, ever the pragmatist and remembering the source of the whole mess, nudges Loki. Make her laugh. This is all your fault anyway.
Loki, sighing dramatically, accepts his fate. He prepares for what has to be the most undignified, grotesque, and profoundly absurd performance in all of Norse mythology.
He retrieves a large, extremely irritated billy goat from the animal pens.
And here is the essential grotesque detail. He ties a strong rope tightly around the goat's long beard, aggravating the already ill-tempered creature.
And he ties the other end of the rope around his own private parts. The goal is not a juggling act or a joke. It is high-stakes, agonizing, physical comedy.
I just have to pause here. The leader of the gods and the most powerful deities in Asgard are now watching a high-stakes tug-of-war where Loki's most sensitive anatomy is on the line, fighting a furious goat.
It completely undercuts any sense of solemnity or divine majesty that might have lingered after the aging crisis. It is pure, unadulterated dark farce.
And the performance is spectacular in its agony. Loki tugs, the goat screams, and Loki screams and wails in response. The rest of the gods, who are, easily entertained by genuine discomfort and high-stakes chaos, start laughing hysterically.
They're immediately placing bets on whether the goat's beard or Loki's anatomy will snap first.
The secondary reactions are key to capturing the mood. Baldur, the beautiful god who Skadi wanted, is stifling his laughter and compares Loki's screams to a fox wailing in the nighttime.
His blind brother Hod giggles, saying Loki sounds like a weeping baby. The whole hall is just in chaos.
But Skadi, the focus of the performance, remains unmoving. She manages only the ghost of a smile. Loki realizes he must escalate the pain and the absurdity.
He increases the desperation and the physical torment until the inevitable happens. The rip finally snaps under the strain.
The force sends Loki shooting backward through the air, clutching his groin in profound agony, and landing, perfectly timed and utterly broken, smack in Skadi's lap, whimpering and broken.
That combination, the prolonged agony, the absurdity of the act, and the final, undignified, whimpering landing in her lap, it breaks Skadi's grief. She finally laughs.
And it's not a gentle sound. The source describes it as laughing like an avalanche in mountain country, And as loudly as a calving glacier, tears of laughter glitter in her eyes.
The catharsis is complete. And in her moment of joy, she even reaches out and squeezes her new, beautiful-footed husband, Njord's hand. The second compensation is fulfilled.
So the final step, then, is the most profound and the most beautiful, ensuring Thiazi is never forgotten.
Odin leads Skadi and Njord out into the night, near the enormous funeral pyre built for the giant's remains. There, Odin speaks of eternal memory. He reveals the ultimate compensation: 2 massive, luminous orbs.
He informs Skadi. Those orbs, those were your father's eyes.
The Allfather, the greatest figure in the Norse cosmos, takes the 2 eyes, the eyes of the giant who stole their immortality, the victim of Loki's trap and Thor's hammer, and throws them up into the night sky.
And they instantly begin to burn and glitter side by side.
This final act is a permanent cosmic form of remembrance. Thiazi's eyes become twin stars, one blazing beside the other, ensuring his memory endures until the very end of time. Skadi's raw vengeance is transformed into a beautiful, enduring celestial monument.
So what does this entire saga, this deep dive into hunger, deceit, rapid aging, and goat-induced laughter ultimately tell us?
The core insight, I think, is the fragility of power in a mythological context. The Aesir possess immense strength, but their youth and their very status as gods are conditional. Their immortality is maintained, not innate.
Right. Remove that single perishable resource, the apples, and even the mighty Thor and the wise Odin are reduced to frail, terrified elders in a matter of days.
Their divinity is a high-cost operating system.
And we also see the true hierarchy of power in Asgard. Thor's brute strength is necessary for the final physical kill, but Loki's psychological toolkit is what drives the entire narrative.
He used deception over violence to create the crisis, and he used calculated psychological manipulation, exploiting Idunn's pride and Skadi's grief to engineer both the rescue and the reconciliation.
He's a catalyst for chaos, but also the indispensable fixer of that chaos.
Furthermore, the nature of justice and reconciliation here is deeply ironic and transactional. The vengeful giantess seeks a specific handsome husband, but is forced by ritual to choose a mismatch, leading to a binding yet sad marriage.
And the pain inflicted by Loki must be paid for, not with blood or gold, but with the greatest public humiliation possible, transforming vengeance into pure, hilarious catharsis.
It's a remarkable cultural insight into how they balance justice. Violence requires repayment, but sometimes that repayment is profoundly absurd. A reflection that gods, despite their power, often behave with very human petulance and humor.
But the last piece of this story, the lasting memorial, it stands in sharp contrast to the farce.
It does. The ultimate compensation is an act of creation. Odin transforming the giant's eyes into twin stars. It's a profound duality, a beautiful, enduring piece of the cosmos created from the victim of treachery and vengeance.
We leave you with this final, provocative thought, drawn directly from the sources we've explored today. Look up into the night sky, especially in midwinter, if you have the chance. Odin's words echo across the millennia. Those 2 stars, one blazing beside the other, are Thiazi's eyes.
Consider that incredible balance.
Huh?
A cosmic memorial, shining forever above the realm that destroyed him. It is a constant twinkling reminder that even in the ultimate victory, the price of peace, the compensation, must always be paid. And sometimes, that price is eternal.